to adjourn.
Good evening. I'd like to call to order the January 20th, 2015 meeting of the Town of Manchester Planning and Zoning Commission. First item on the agenda is the approval of the November 18th, 2014 minutes, which was our last meeting.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes as submitted.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Approved. Report, Michelle, Board of Zoning Appeals?
We have had no Board of Zoning Appeals hearings, so nothing to report on that. As far as my portion of the town report, the only thing I would tell you, we are completely finished. County Manchester Farms, we've taken the roads over, so it's all ours now. Except for a few street signs that need to be corrected. I think Bob Work's pretty done out there. And that's all we've got going on.
Okay. Steve, do you have anything you want to add?
I have two things. Good evening, Commission members. I have two things to report on. First of all, our town hall, new town hall and police station. The architectural drawings are about 85% complete. So hopefully we can maybe break ground sometime around the middle of spring. That's what we're hoping for. The other item is some good news. The town has received a $60,000 community legacy grant, and we're going to use that money for ADA improvements from Main Street up along York Street, possibly all the way out to Grafton Street, to do some improvements for our ramps and the ADA sidewalks there. So that's it.
Very good. Tammy, do you have anything you want to add for the council?
I do. We've been working for several years on a charter resolution for a couple of key items, and so that passed, Resolution 01-2015 this month, and basically it covers three key areas: the council member and mayor, the residency requirements, removal and vacancy, how we deal with that, the appointment and removal of certain employees, key employees, like the director of finance, town manager, so forth, and then the election process. This needed a lot of updating. It was pretty old and antiquated. So we have all that in place now. So it'll be in time for the upcoming election, the declaration of candidacy, floor nominations, the use of voting machines, electioneering, poll watchers, voter assistants. So a lot of things just never really been kind of covered.
Yeah.
So a lot of updates. So.
Very good.
Okay, thank
And-
you. Oh,
yeah.
sorry. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say, that takes like, we'll know in 50 days if there's been any public comment, and then we'll go for codification and we're done. So.
Very good. Thank you. Ms. Moser, I think it's come to you so quickly, as it usually does.
Never.
I can't wait to hear what you have to say. That's what it is.
Yeah, would you pull that out there, Bobby? I forgot. Thank you.
Well, it's heavier than it looks.
Part of our unknown fitness plan.
Okay, well, in that case, just to be even.
There you go. That's right.
Good evening, everybody.
Good
Good
evening.
evening.
Happy New Year.
Same
Thank
to
you,
you.
too.
Thank you.
I have two things I want to cover this evening, and the first is I want to introduce you to someone who is new in my office. We have a new planner technician. Her name is Nokomis Ford. She started with us Thursday, week before last, so this Thursday will be all of 2 weeks that she's been with us. We are very excited to have her, and I have asked her to come first so that everyone can meet her and see what she looks like and have a face to tie in with the voice and emails and so forth. And I've asked her to just provide a brief summary of her background and what she's working on right now for us. Thomas?
Hi, I'm very excited to be here. My name is Nokomis Ford, and I will be working on zoning requests annexations, historic preservation, land preservation, parks and recreation plans. So those are the summation of what I've been doing. And I have a master's degree in city and regional planning from Morgan State. So, nice to meet you all.
Very good, welcome.
Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
And the other thing I wanted to bring you up to date on is progress that we've had on the update to the Carroll County Master Plan. I think I mentioned at the November meeting that the County Planning and Zoning Commission had held its public hearing on November 5th. After the hearing, they deliberated. I believe there were several work sessions. And on December 16th, the Planning Commission approved the master plan. And I believe it was on December 31st that the Planning Commission officially submitted the approved plan to the Board of County Commissioners for final adoption. Basically, according to state law, the elected officials, in our case the Board of Commissioners, have 60 days to take action. We are hopeful that they will adopt the plan. I will keep you posted on what ends up happening.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Thank you all for moving quickly. Item 4 on our agenda, the Western Abbey amended site plan review.
Just before we start, I just wanted to remind everybody that I've had to recuse myself from the review of this project, so I will not be providing comments or voting on this matter.
I also would like to add that this is the first real amended site plan that I have worked with, and I wasn't comfortable in the way that this was being submitted, so I did go down and talk to the county, and I know I've talked to Rich's people, and they're going to be submitting it to get an actual file number, so we will have a new amended site plan number, because this is the first plan I haven't had that, and kind of wanted something to explain what we did. So even by the time we final approve it, it will have its own file number. So much,
If I
guys.
can piggyback on, the county's issued us a number,
Okay.
but we didn't regenerate plans because it was just a day or two ago that we got, I guess, on Friday. And I thought whatever comments come out of tonight's meeting, we would put in and then make that a better submission. Even though we have the number, we could have.
That's fine.
Okay.
Good evening, sir. You got it.
Okay, but first I want to thank Michelle for scheduling us so quickly, and my apologies for Mike McGinnis. He is stuck on the Beltway. All these people keep moving out here, so I'm only bringing the retired people out, so I'm not contributing. But he does send his apologies that he couldn't be here. So what I want to do is just talk to you briefly about the plan. I know you've been briefed back in November, but it may be good to just to recapture some of the highlights, and then we can dig into any of the details that might be relevant. I'm going to turn around and pull up the plan. So this is the site plan. I want to show it to the audience too. I know we have a couple of neighbors out here. Essentially what we have are 5 buildings that look very similar to what's being constructed at Castle Field. So the idea in November was that we went from the single family to the same product that you see down there, and I think that was fairly well received at the time. So since then, we've gone ahead and completed a lot of our engineering design. We still have the same basic road layout. The road did get a little bit longer by about 8 feet down here in order for us to be able to get the sidewalk to meet ADA compliance. So on the previously approved plan, there was no sidewalk, it was open section road. So this actually has sidewalk on both sides, and so we had to flatten it out just a little bit, and that just pushed it out a little bit. So then laying in the buildings, we've got a minimum of 20 feet behind the back of curb to the face of the garage door, so basically one car parking. Just similar to what you see in Castle. The next thing that we looked at was grading. The grading's essentially the same. We still have a retaining wall on the back side of these 2 units. So this is high, this is lower. We have an L-shaped retaining wall in this corner. And then we have a longer retaining wall that This side is higher, and then the southwestern side is lower. So the idea is that across this slope, we've got about a 5% cross slope. It gave us about 15 to 20 feet. Yeah, on this side, because I'm blocking half the people here. So it gives us a little bit of backyard for every unit before we get to the retaining wall, either that's below us or behind us. So the idea there is that we try to minimize the amount of grading by maximizing the slopes, but we have to also make it livable in the backyard. So we surround the retaining walls with landscaping. We submitted the landscaping plan to the county already, and even though we've got a new county number, the plan that we submitted was approved. So there were some changes from that plan. The original plan was based on residential requirements. This is considered a little bit different because of the retaining wall. So there's a little bit of difference in planning, but it's just a couple of trees. So we're going to take advantage of, there's a row of pine trees here that are 25 to 40 feet tall. They're all going to stay, and I think that'll help screen the tall wall. Then the next thing that we looked at was how to treat stormwater management. We actually have exactly the same stormwater management system. The storm drain getting to it's just a little bit different. We space the inlets a little bit different. But the idea here is that we're going to capture 100% of the 10-year event. So when we capture it, we're going to store it in a stone bed. What that means is that the stone has voids in it, so you can pour water into it, and it will hold the water until it leaks through the bottom. So that's really what the stormwater management does. And it'll do that up to the 10-year event. At that point, it's designed to overflow, and there's a drainage swale that comes along here and goes down towards Washington Way. For the sewer, there's a sewer connection here. And what we're going to do is we're going to extend it up and around. That's the off-site portion of our sewer. And then we'll bring it on-site to collect from our individual houses. We also have a water line that exists from Hilltop Drive that comes down to Southwestern. A portion of that's going to need to be relocated. Critical point is that we've got to go under the retaining wall. So on one side, we've got to have 4 feet of cover over the water line. So on the downhill side, we're 4 feet, and then when we come through it, we've got about close to 16 feet of cover, so that the water main, if there's ever a problem with the water main, you don't have to tear out the retaining wall. We're putting in a sleeve. So there's going to be a point where, you just dig from the low side, and then you can pull the broken water line from the other side without removing the entire retaining wall. I do know that there's a concern about how deep the line gets on this side. Steve has asked for us not to go any deeper than 5 feet, but we're going to have to be somewhat deeper than that, and that'll be something we work out between now and final approvals. But I am aware that DPW is concerned about that. Last feature I want to talk about is that we're adding a gazebo, very similar. It's a little smaller scale than what's at Castlefield, but it's the same concept. But there'll be a common area with a nice meeting place. So that's the overview. If anybody has any questions, we can go into some detail over where things are.
Can I ask a question? Am I allowed to?
Hang on, we'll wait for when we get into public comment.
Okay.
No.
I had one question while you were talking about that Steve and I, the gazebo, does that require any water or sewer?
It does not.
No.
No, and actually, the way we depict it, we're going to scoot it a little bit so that it's in a better location. We're going to move it by about 2 or 3 feet.
That's the larger scale drawing right there.
This one is, yes.
Yeah, if you could pop that up for a second.
The purpose of this drawing was to talk about the water main construction, so that's really what's highlighted, but it is a little bit easier to see some of the features.
Michelle. Refresh my memory, what are the setbacks required in this zone?
The setbacks are being based on a retirement community site plan that no longer exists in the codes. This is a grandfathered use in because it was previously approved. Those setbacks were at that time, and what we were following, 50-foot front and rear and 40-foot sides. The code book does state that the planning commission has the ability to modify those sides without going to a board of zoning appeals when the plot is greater than 45,000 square feet, which is what we have. So that's something that
Okay,
you.
do we need, are we requesting a side yard or a setback from all directions?
Yes, what I would like to request, and you can see it on this view, this is the 50-foot front and rear yard setbacks and 40 feet on the sides. I'm okay on the sides, but you can see with this product that I go over the 50-foot in a number of places. So what I'd like to request is that the setback be 40 feet front, rear, and sides. And that will allow me to use the same product that we're using at Castlefield.
Okay, on the rears of those products, are there decks on there? Or are they patios that are on grade? Talk to me a little bit more about what a homeowner may encounter.
What happened on Castlefield was that the plan is not to include the deck unless the purchaser would like to have a deck or patio added. So what happened on that case was if a person was buying a particular unit, the deck would come in. Michelle, as the zoning administrator, had the authority to grant a variance for that deck if it was 50% or less into the building setback line, if I remember that correct. So that was the process. It was really driven by the ultimate purchaser on whether or not there was a deck or a patio added. Obviously, some of them don't lend themselves to such a feature. I wouldn't expect the ones with the cut wall to have a deck that would reach out there, but they may have a patio.
But your previous product was within the setback.
Not in all cases, no, it was not.
No, your previous product, as far as the
I'm
buildings
sorry.
were, yes.
I'm sorry. I was.
So is there any thought given to that when you went to this new product that you would have to request the change in variance, or did you kind of come in hoping that we would just go ahead and let it go because we approved the change?
No, I thought we discussed it a little bit in November, that maybe I'm mistaken on that, but I thought we did bring up that the product was right at the boundary. I know that we talked about what the building setback lines should be. I think at that time I mentioned that I'd like to see it at 45 feet.
In August, we did talk about that the product may need some modifications, but it was not defined at that point in time that I recall.
Correct, it was not defined, I agree with that.
The retaining walls you're showing along here, you're proposing interlocking engineered block walls. Approximately how far from the property lines are they?
Okay, we're showing, what we're using is a product called Strong Stone.
Okay.
It's a 4-foot by 8-foot block. It's pretty massive. They weigh about 2 tons apiece. Literally, they're big Legos. So we're, I believe we're 10 feet from the property line in all cases. Let me see if I can double check that. Coming up with 10 feet from the property line for the walls. Now, with the type of wall that we're using, it doesn't require a geogrid behind it. It's a large gravity wall. The idea is because of the massive stone, it doesn't need the geogrid. So has a smaller impact on the adjacent property. So for example, the ones here that are on cut wall, I don't need to go into my neighbor's property in order to construct them. If I were using a keystone wall, for example, I could have a tieback that would be 10, 12, maybe even 15 feet for some of the locations. But I don't, that's why we selected this type of product.
What kind of four-toe wall do they need on the low side? You got 10 feet to that low property line. Does the footing and foundation system need to extend into that 10 feet?
No, it's the footing is, and I just finished designing these, it's 18 inches into the existing ground, and there's no forward toe required.
It's all gravity-based, okay. So, impact on the pines that are along there will be minor impacts, presumably?
I talked to my landscape architect directly about that, and he felt that with root pruning on this one edge, that the trees would be okay and would survive that trauma.
And you say they're 30 to 40 feet tall, so they probably have a caliber of 18 to 20 inches then?
I have not been that close to them, but they're pretty, I do drive Southwestern every day, and I've seen them, but I've never gone up to inspect them, but
Probably a little less than that. That maybe 12 to 14.
Could be. Okay, so we'll certainly be less than 50% impact on their root zone. So,
I believe that's correct, yes. And I will follow that up and make sure my landscape architect addresses that.
please do. I do have concern about the water line where it comes through the wall. Obviously, sleeving is an acceptable practice there. It's done all the time. My concern is on the high side, we are going to be significantly deep there, and we do need to be very cautious about how deep that line is versus the width of the easement and getting equipment in there to be able to work through with staff, assuming that we approve this. We have to be very cautious about that. One of the other comments that we made previously when we were discussing this was providing access to sewer from the Hilltop neighborhood. I don't see a sewer extension running up there, nor do I see an easement whereby should that line have to be tapped that we could.
We spent some time looking at your question on how to the sewer, our neighbors in, and a couple of our neighbors are here. Mr. Rumbaum's here, and the bosses are here. So these are the affected property owners right there. So what we looked at was the question ultimately becomes how do we get this whole system back into the town's system if that is existing. What we found was that if we put a sewer manhole here, that it essentially it serves no purpose for the houses back here or Mr. Welch's property further away, that they really can't get by gravity to here. So these folks are going to wind up putting in pump systems. So we took some time and we looked at what the existing sewer easements along the property lines were. And what we found was that there's some drainage and utility easements that are accessible by these 5 immediately adjacent properties. So if Mr. Welch had a problem, he's got a vacant lot. I think this is the vacant lot here on the left side. This is a potential route for him if his septic system fails. The same thing with these folks here. They can get into the existing drainage and utility easement. So what we looked at was this sewer extension here doesn't really serve our neighbors or allows, what this does is allows the greater communities to still get into the system. So we would extend a stub here and provide for a manhole here so that there could be the future connections that I think we're looking for.
And that's in the Altieri Parcel B right of way?
Talking about not the parcel B, that's not our property.
No, it's in these properties directly.
Yeah, there would have to be a lot of agreements made between those property owners to make this work. If you have the little hilltop, they have their gravity line that runs out the rear. Something happens to that line, how we're bringing it back. Somebody's bringing it back to them. There's gonna have to be a lot of agreement, I mean, a lot of right of way.
Right, but if our development were here, that would be the probable engineered solution if they had a problem. I think that would make the most, they would go this way, not to here.
Correct. I mean, you can look at it a little different way. There's a possibility of pump. Pump it out compared to no pump and gravity out the back. There'd be a lot of agreement.
I mean, this
There
does,
has to be made between the property.
right, there is an existing drainage utility easements there, and I would assume that the benefit would be for whatever utility.
Correct.
I mean, that was my first read. We can explore that and make sure that that's what the actual reading of the easements would be.
So we're looking at it, they take care of those particular lots. If they extend farther up Hilltop, we're not even thinking about the homes on the east side of Hilltop. As far as the new home that was just built a few years ago.
Right, the one here.
Glazer's house there. May have to take a further look at that.
Right. I didn't consider these because they're flowing in this direction, which has the Old Town development and the Carroll property. Would seem that because of the way the ridge works, that those units would head toward whatever solution comes up for those properties. I mean, we're not in dire straits right now. These folks have septic, so they're not in a
Correct.
failed condition because we,
Right, we just want to look
Right.
ahead for the future.
right, we would certainly agree with not doing anything that would preclude a smart engineered solution.
And you're on a combination gravity and force main system, correct? You're all gravity? Really?
Oh, everything on our, I think I have,
Yeah, it goes into a gravity manhole.
At the top of Ridgely?
Right.
Right, but to get back up to the top of Ridgely,
I'm sorry, further down in the system, we're pumped, yes, but on site.
On-site.
On site, I'm entirely gravity,
to the cul-de-sac, and then you're forced up to Ridgely.
I'm by gravity all the way,
Really?
I have no pumps in my
Wow.
system.
No, it flows all the way, all that flow goes right down into Manchester Farm.
Right,
Okay.
and
There's no
then-
pump
and then-
station anywhere in between.
Okay. I apologize if I missed it. How wide are your sidewalks?
4 feet.
4 feet?
You know what, it may be 5, I mean, let me double check that, I can scale it real quick.
They're ADA, right?
5 is the preferred.
You went to both sides of the,
Mhm.
for ADA, correct?
Yes, sir, that's
Yeah.
correct. Well, it's 5 feet from the face of curb to the back of the sidewalk, so the top of the curb is about 6 inches, so it's a 4.5 foot wide sidewalk with a little edge for the, so it's face of curb, the back of the sidewalk is 5 feet.
Previously, we also talked about the possibility of the parcel to the east having the ability to connect through at that cul-de-sac. Is that still a potential?
No, sir, it would not be, with the retaining wall, that would not be a potential. I didn't pick up on that the last time. My
Potential for
understanding-
emergency egress, because you only have one way in and out of this site, so.
Right. I apologize. If we talked about that last time, I didn't pick up on it. It was my understanding from conversations with Mr. Welsh that many, many years ago, there was somebody who wanted to push Hilltop Drive across into Southwestern, and and again, I'm speaking from hearsay, so if this is an accurate reflection, my understanding was that the folks on Hilltop opposed that, and the original concept for Western Abbey, back in 2001 or whenever it was first conceived, was partly what they agreed to was to not allow for that extension. Now, with that said, we're at grade right here, and if we had an all-terrain vehicle that had to get across here, I think that would be possible to do. But it's certainly not a hard surface. And that would require some coordination with.
A future
ODOT
development.
to make that work.
I don't want us to preclude that from happening. As I said, you are down the end of the hill, you are a single point of access, and we did discuss the increase of the number of units, so we do have some concerns about should there be a problem. But obviously, there's nothing to connect to today. Just let's not preclude it from happening in the future, is all I'm saying.
Well, I mean, from my perspective, this is a retaining wall, but there's nothing that says that we can't regrade this if we have access to the adjacent property to continue.
Well, that would be
the
their,
road, and becomes a
that would be
desire.
their obligation. They're not here today, so.
Right, they're not.
So
But,
let-
I
let-
mean, from an engineering perspective, it could certainly be done.
Okay.
From what I understand, Mr. Welch's
Right.
opinion, he would
Right.
prefer not to do that.
Right.
but that's-
It would be emergency use only, if at all, so, okay. Okay.
Can I jump back to the deck question for a quick second? It looks like the closest property to the line is going to be that, that bottom right-hand unit, as far as setback,
Yes.
that one. So, in the new design, where these are less like Western Abbey, is the second floor a slider on every unit? What we're going to call the second floor? Is it the slider with the, where you barricade it if they don't put a deck on, and if you do put a deck on, it's,
I'm going to have to defer on that.
Okay.
I don't know the architecture well enough to answer that, but certainly a legitimate question for us to respond to.
yeah, so if I, what is the distance that you're looking at between that last one with the new setback and that retaining wall? I mean,
It's about,
is it about 40, 30 feet?
It's a little more
40?
than, these scales.
45 feet. It's about 45 feet there, so if we give them a 40-foot setback, they could go 10 feet in.
So it's really about 28 feet to the back of the retaining wall. Now, I should make a comment that this is a 4-foot wide retaining wall,
Mhm.
but only the front 6 inches of it are actually exposed. The rest of it's actually buried. So, even though it's 26 feet to the back of it, it's right around 28, 29 feet to the exposed part of the face.
So, yeah, so we'd have 28, and then, what's the deck allotment? Do you know off the top of your head, Michelle? Would we be able, they'd be able to go 10 feet?
Setback 25% with no,
Without a BZA approval.
From 28 and 25%, what's the quick math on that?
Well, it's a
Well,
40-foot setback, so it would be 10
40-foot setback would be 10 feet in.
and
So-
that that
Okay.
last one you said that's 28 feet off the fence is actually 40 feet to the property line?
It's
45.
It's 43 feet to the property line.
Oh, so we wouldn't use the retaining wall as,
No, it's from the property line.
okay.
So they could do essentially a 15-foot deck.
With 12 feet to the retaining wall, or 13 feet to the retaining wall.
Correct.
Couldn't get a fire truck back there.
Oh, no, it would be a hose pole.
Wouldn't
They'd
want
be
to.
served from
No,
the
it's
front.
true.
Wouldn't want to put that weight back there.
No.
Yeah.
Had to get it out.
Fire-wise, pretty much everything's a hose pull. I mean, they can get to the fronts, but,
Yeah, you're gonna stay right on the cul-de-sac.
So
Not gonna-
the middle units are, where's, is there where's the hydrant location,
We are
just
showing-
roughly?
Sure.
We're showing hydrants at the
Right,
end.
one at both ends.
Right, at both ends. We have some flexibility on that.
Yeah.
From a spacing perspective, we could add, it just made sense to put them at the very end so that they would double as
Is that pretty normal, 300 or 400 feet to get to the back of one of them units?
Normal? Normal is, it's not a term to
Not-
use in that capacity, no.
Is that
No.
an extenuate, over absorbing an amount?
I've seen worse.
Yeah, okay,
We have worse with the
okay.
multi-story building down here on Maiden Lane.
That's correct. You're absolutely right.
So you'll have to go through the house, maybe.
Mhm.
The comment that I made was, could the fire hydrants act as double as blow-off, but the fire department may have a concern where their fire hydrants are located. So you're actually, some of those units you'd be going by the fire to hit the hydrant, you'd have to do a reverse way back. Not out of the question, but the fire department may have some concern with that.
Yeah, and I don't think we're opposed to adding a hydrant. In fact, I think in one of my early sketches, we had a hydrant up here. So it's-
DPW, one of the comments they had, they basically say keep the blow off and the hydrant. But possibly you eliminate the blow off, use the hydrant as
As
the
is.
blow off.
And that's why we have them at the ends here, but I mean, certainly adding something in the center location might be, is something that makes sense.
Property would be a condominium regime, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Would it be part of the same condominium regime as the Overlook or completely separate?
Can't answer that question. I didn't, consider that on my document.
Is that a group mailbox location there by the gazebo?
Yes, and then we have a little photo of what, it's a group mailbox, so, I do think that we found that the gazebo where we placed it was, possibly right around where the building setback line was, so we may want to move that and move the mailbox to the opposite side of it, but that's a little thing, I think.
Steve, where's the other hydrant coming down Hilltop? How close is it to the end of the property line? Is there another?
The next hydrant is actually back across from Mr. Welch's house.
From a perspective.
So you're looking at a 1,000,
Right now-
2,000 feet?
Yeah, there's one at the dead end, but that's gonna be removed, that's gonna have to be moved, I'm pretty sure, by a tree, it's a tree right there. And that's near the entrance, right? Does that get moved, Rich? Does that get relocated?
It doesn't need to be for our purpose, but, I mean, if that's part of what makes sense, it should. Mr. Welch.
Oh, there's right there. Yeah, right on the property line.
That's-
It's protected, it's just the location, it's simple, it's a simple story on the cul-de-sac. The hydrant burns, put back, here we will modify.
No, I just didn't know if it would mitigate that if there was one close to the entrance or relatively, but otherwise, it's a long lay coming in.
Steve, I believe you also had some concerns over the water line routing in the bend proximities.
Yeah, we were concerned about, the system has to be put into a hydraulic model, and one thing we were concerned about is the 90-degree bend at T at the beginning station.
Right.
So we're a little concerned about that. That'll show up on the hydraulic model if there's a problem.
Yeah, and that's a drafting thing, we just showed it as a 90, but in reality, I mean, we can make it, 245s, or we can crimp it so that it doesn't cause those kind of losses.
Correct. I'll just highlight my our DPW comments. We need a detail of the master water meter and fire flow meter. Now, they do have a new product out that it's only one meter, so it's combo, census meter, so we verified that and had that. We talked about Wallaston, which now I have more concern about the weight pushing down on the city, but we'll talk about that later. The plan, I'm moving down to the sewer comments. Plans are kind of busy, and some of the manholes were not clearly identified.
Okay.
So, the other big item, we're clear on the responsibility of the water system inside the complex. Of course, the responsibility stops at the water meter location. We have to be very clear on where the town responsibility starts and ends with the sewer. And we are recommending that the responsibility would begin or stop at sewer manhole number 11. And that would be there at, what is that, Ridge Street?
On Ridge.
Right, that's the existing.
Correct.
You would want your, okay, now keep in mind, our property line is back here.
Understand.
You know, so I mean, there'll be some, agreements that will have authority to go on to town property to maintain and control that.
And we wouldn't have a problem with that. That's a good starting point, and anything right at the end of the right there. Those are the, also the DPW talked about the sewer extension for Hilltop Drive and stuff like that. We do have, like I said, we do have concerns. I mean, 16 feet deep is out of our realm. We don't have any equipment that'll reach 16 feet deep. And so now about the weight pushing down. We called out for a class 51 or 52 ductile iron pipe, 52. I don't know what the crushing point is on that.
Well,
But that bothers me. I've used steel sleeves in the past, so we may have to.
Yeah, I think I am showing the ductile iron sleeve. I will comment that if the retaining wall should not put any crushing load on that pipe, that it should be able to distribute it. I mean, we're about two feet below the bottom of the footer for the retaining wall, but we can do some analysis and make that.
I know at one time we had talked about we would go through the wall, now we're under the wall. Under the footer. Just in conversation.
Right.
Early on.
I think that I'm not sure how that came about, because the most that we would have ever been putting that retaining wall in on the low side would have been about 18 inches below the water lines at 4 feet. So, there's no real way to get it through the wall, because I would be exposing the line.
Correct.
Correct. We could in that one spot in front of the wall where the water line is, we could mound it. Maybe we can bring it up a couple of feet that way, and that will obviously decrease it on the uphill side too. And then we get a concern about, how quickly do we want to come back up? Pipe failure is going to occur at vertical bends that don't have a good thrust block, so I'd rather not come through the sleeve and then put a vertical bend on it.
Which could create a.
Right, so if we could figure out a way that we're all comfortable with, and maybe we use class 54, maybe we use restraint joint pipe through there. I think, restraint joint pipe, class 54 might be a good solution.
Just two quick items. What we talked about, the water main relocation, but we need a schedule that your contractor can talk to our public works, because that is a main line, that is a main distribution line for that side of town, so we have to.
And I think we also need to meet with you to talk about shut-off schedules and how we take folks out of service flip the line over and still maintain adequate pressure, because obviously, you know, the tank is right there, and that's very much influences things.
That's about it, I mean, we covered all everything. Yeah, that's something that I think we'll talk about, yeah, shut, isolation valve.
Oh, right, okay.
Just one other item I just want to document for the minutes here is that we would like to see, I would like to see it not called Hilltop Drive, because it will not be a town maintained street, and it's much easier if it just isn't a big Hilltop purple or court or something down at the bottom there. Once they get that, they're no longer town.
I mean, we haven't put out, to my knowledge, we haven't done any marketing brochures or made any commitments to that. We do have a reserve on the Western Abbey Drive name with the county, so, you know, would you like us to submit names to you, or does it matter?
I don't, do you guys really see, the way the town
I
does
see
now,
that.
anything that's a drive is normally a private road, which Hilltop
Right.
kind of messes that up anyway, but I would like to be able to say, okay, if your address is Hilltop Way or Circle or Court, whatever you think is more appropriate, you are not getting our trash service and you are not getting our snow service, and, you know, it's just easier.
And I think the road agency, somewhere in the county,
Yeah.
they do check names to
Yep, yep.
avoid duplication,
Yep.
confusion.
Yeah, they have
Can't remember if it's Belmont or yours.
it's in building permits, I think.
And that's important because emergency services want to be sure
Right.
that they get to the right.
Yeah, they usually, what they usually do is they require, we'll ask for a name, but then they'll ask me for at least one alternate name. And that way, if there is a, you know, conflict, I mean, there may be a Hilltop, well, I know there's more than one Hilltop, but they may feel like it's something I shouldn't use if I call it, you know, Larry Way or something, I don't know. Could use any name. But those-
Larry Way. He's smiling.
How long are these blocks that the walls made of?
They're 8 feet,
8 feet long?
yes.
Okay,
8
so-
8 feet by 4 feet by 3 feet tall.
Okay.
And there are half blocks and quarter blocks, so that when we get to certain locations, we can, you know, edge it off a little bit differently.
So you could certainly bridge the sleeve pipe without any problem then? Okay.
You'd have your,
Makes
yeah,
sense.
you'd have your foot.
Yeah.
Bridge
Mm-hmm. Just give you one more piece of protection on that pipe. Okay, calling out for a 36-inch rail on top of it.
Yes. See. That's on all the retaining walls.
All the walls, right? Okay. 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 I think you had a couple of people who wanted to make comment.
What does the volunteer fire department's first due engine carry as a hose complement for a supply line? To carry LDH 5-inch? Okay. Okay, who we have for public comment? Anybody who would like to make comment or ask question? Go ahead, sir, you step up to the mic, give us your name.
Good evening, my name is Bill Rumbach, and let's see, I'm not sure which map would be the best one, but that's my house right there. So that's why we're here, that's why I'm here. And I just have a couple questions. I just heard you say that if I understood correctly, the fence at the top of the retaining wall is 36 inches, is that correct? That's correct. Do you know the drop from, because you're going to be below grade, what is the drop from the top of that retaining wall that would be at this end to? Yeah, I have 8 kids in the home, and they're, you know, from 7 on up, and I just didn't know this stuff. And I want to know about that fence. In fact, I'd like it to be 4 feet.
Are you looking at an existing home, or was it, is that?
I was a Stater's home.
Stager's house?
Yes.
Okay, right.
So, yeah, what I want to do is I want to put it on there, but I don't want to lose, yeah. So here's retaining wall A, and basically it's, each one of these blocks is about 5 feet. So when I look in the center here, that part right there is about 8 feet. That might go up to 10 feet, but it looks like that one section, it's going to generally be about 6 to 8 feet. And the upper part along here is going to be closer to 5 foot.
So 5 foot from the top of the retaining wall to somebody's backyard.
To the ground below. Yes.
Okay. And I just wanted that clarification, because I just want to make sure that we're doing everything we can there to be as safe as possible, because we've got kids that are going to be playing back there, and, 4 of them are boys, and, I've got a couple in wheelchairs, and I just don't need, would also like to just have on record, if that hydrant that's there could be kept, it all, there's not a reason to move it. I don't
Right.
think we need.
Sure.
I think, my insurance is probably lower because it's right there.
And we'll definitely do that. And I was just sitting here thinking, if that hydrant had to be relocated, the hydrant's gonna be relocated within, a reasonable, 30, 40, 50 feet of its original location. Yeah, we wouldn't get rid of it.
And I need to, what I didn't understand was that the gentleman that came out yesterday, Mr. McConnell, okay, he came out and was very helpful, showed us the maps and everything, but I'm unclear because I didn't quite understand about hooking into sewer and that thing. I have a septic, which most of us have septic back in that corner right back there. It was my understanding, he made a point at the back corner of my lot and said, this would be where, if you were to tie in at some point in the future, tie into the town sewer, that would be where I would do it. Now, does that mean there's going to be a pipe put up to that point, or is that not going to be done unless it needs to be done at some time in the future?
The second, it would only need to be done if your septic failed. I think what I understood from the board the last time was that they were concerned that if we did this development, that we made sure that we didn't preclude any of these folks from connecting to the public sewer. So what Tom McDonald from my office came around and knocked on the neighbors' doors so that they would see firsthand. What he was trying to express was that your property here is adjacent to a drainage utility easement, and I think that's what Mr. Miller was concerned about was, if your septic failed, you would have to connect to the public sewer. From an engineer's perspective, it seems to me the best way is the straight line, and it comes across the utility easement, and I think that's what Mr. Miller was concerned about was that you have rights to that sewer easement. I'll find out for certain how that language for the utility easement reads, but more than likely, even if septics do fail, but you have your backup reserve system, and you can add to them. But this would be a viable solution if you did have to connect to the public system.
So I think the question I have to ask would be then, and this is actually probably for you all, sometime in the future my septic fails. Am I having to pay for all of this to go up to hook me in?
You will. Yes, the town does not run water and sewer lines.
He misrepresented that yesterday, or I completely misunderstood, because he said, you'll tie in right there. And it ain't no problem on my map. And he had everybody highlighted where they were going. So,
I apologize. What he was trying to show was this is a viable solution for you if your system failed. Now, we do plan to install a stub here so that, if you did have to connect here, you would be able to connect to a stub without adding, that expense. Because we can do that very cheaply while we're in there compared to a future, dig it up and crack into it. So I think that's an easy thing for us to accommodate.
And I understand if this development didn't go in and it stayed a cornfield and my septic fails, I still have the problem. I mean, I get that.
Right.
I'm just trying to clarify what's,
Yeah, the town always tries to look ahead into the future, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, if the developer's up there and he's doing development work, we try to lean on the developer to put in as much as he can for the residents in that area for future use. We're going through the same thing with basically Manchester Farms Section 7 off of Shar Mill Drive, where we'll have the availability, the developer's going to put in the gravity sewer line, and those homeowners, existing homeowners along Shar Mill, will have a clean out that they can tie into sewer if their septic fails. If that line wasn't put in, then it would be up to the homeowner to foot the bill for that.
Understood. And I'd like to give my support to using a different name than Hilltop, because it just avoids confusion, and it does, especially if there's emergency services and things like that. I'm sure that it would be easier if it was something. Larry, what was it, Larry Way? Was it?
Mo way.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, come forward.
Hi, I'm Jeannie Kloss, and we live in this house, which we just bought a year ago. And the gentleman who came out yesterday said that our tie-in point would be here. He drew there's an orange mark on that set. And that's great for us because all of this slopes downward here. But it would also tie in these people who are behind us. We need some clarification, as Mr. Miller said, on how that would work in the future if we needed to do that. Now, our house is only 9 years old, so the odds of it failing anytime soon are probably slim. Bill's house is much older.
Mine's 50 and almost 60.
And Carl and Anna's house is much older, and they would be part of that too. They're over here. We just don't know, how that, our stuff would be right here, this stuff. So somebody is going to have to run it all the way across the back of that property. This is the back of our property. We have no idea how we would do that with our neighbors. Who would be in charge of that? Who would we go to? Who would help us with that?
Well, this is the first time we have seen this drawing right here. So Michelle and I in our Public Works Department has to take a hard look at this and say, I don't know if this is going to work. I mean, it will physically work, but with all the agreements. Now, we also have another house to the north that's in town, Mr. Mitten, and that's a little rancher-style house.
Yes.
Yeah, so, we can't take that house out of the equation either.
It's out here?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
But we also have to look at the remaining homes on Hilltop, like Mr. Welch's, the next Jaggers, I believe.
Yeah.
So we
Right.
have to take a
That's what
look
we
at
thought,
that.
too. What about them? I said to my husband, what do you think should
Right.
happen to them?
I think that's why we originally thought we wanted a connection at the end of your site plan there on Hilltop, so that if homeowners had to run it, they just run it down Hilltop. So which originally we
And
could.
if you don't mind me
No, no.
jumping in, when we talk about that location up here, the problem is the geography. This is the 1070 contour, so if, we were looking at where the septic for Mr. Rumbaugh's property is, he's probably at about the 68 contour. So, this is very difficult for him to flow by gravity there. So these folks they have a choice then, if their septic failed, to put in a pump station, an individual pump for each house, and bring it up to Hilltop Drive and then connect to a sewer here. Now we'll go back to, okay, is this a private sewer or is this a public sewer? There's been some push that we want to have this as a private sewer all the way out to here. But if we make allowances for these folks to pump up to Hilltop Drive, well, they've got to consider the cost of the pumping versus coming this direction by gravity, especially over a long term. So, I mean, I'll take responsibility for this layout. What I did was, I looked at, and I said, if Mr. Welsh came to me and said, how am I going to put public sewer on my property? I don't think as an engineer that I would recommend that he put in a grinder pump in his house and come this way. I felt like the best way for him to do that would be
Catch
to
a gravity.
connect by gravity this way. And I apologize for not showing it ahead of time, but that just seemed to me to not be a complex solution. Now, it does put the burden on the property owners here, because if their septic fails in the future, it's their burden to put that on. But, you know, I'm going to put on my Mike McGinnis hat for a second. What I'm trying to do for him is not to preclude a solution.
Mhm.
You know, if the only solution were to come into here and, you know, we didn't build that, that would be an inappropriate thing, I think. So, you know, I think this is a better solution than asking these folks to build something to pump up to then come back into.
Right. Yeah, I think we just have to take a hard look and analyze that a little bit, because we might expand our view a little bit farther to the north. We'll just have to take a look at it. I mean,
Right, I know that you've got another development working up here.
Correct.
Maybe that's part of what you're looking at. I mean, but I don't know how far, you know, solutions for the immediate neighbors is what I was really thought we were focusing on from November, but maybe you guys had a wider swath than what I realized.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, that's all I have to say.
I've got a comment to piggyback on Mr. Rumball's comment. At the very end on that retaining wall, right before he stood up, is when first time I heard the 36-inch. And that goes back to our fencing policy, I'm guessing. But I'm under the same feeling on a 36-inch with a 6 to 7 foot drop on the other side of it. What would we need to do to increase that to possibly a 48-inch fence?
I think that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Well, let me just ask this now. What kind of fence are you talking about on top of the?
Yeah, because there's a whole nother set. We just finished
Yeah.
rewriting our entire fencing guidelines.
Okay, I haven't studied what type of we're going to specify, but, you know, maybe Michelle, we can work out what would be appropriate and what's consistent with your fencing policy.
I know in the past we have seen, like a Holly Hill that did, chain link up there or something, and we don't allow
Right,
that.
we've also had decorative metal fencing proposed in places, so.
Just
Well,
can't be.
I'd like to put in for the, you know, to research at least a 48-inch fence, but also with some type of structural integrity for weight, possibly an iron fencing of some sort, to be able to withstand the, you know, weight of someone leaning on it. You know, I can't foresee any type of plastic fencing working.
If I may, there's some building code requirements that we have to meet for that.
Right.
36 inches is the minimum height for that, but I don't really see a problem going to, especially on wall A, to a taller height, 42, 48 inches, whatever fits in with your zoning regulations. But it will need to comply with the building code. And that'll be part of when we submit plans for the retaining wall permit. One of the things the county staff look for is the barrier at the top.
Any more comment? I did not see any landscape plans, unless I missed them.
Sorry, they should have been part of your set.
I go one. I go 125, 26, 27. I don't have 18, 19.
You can take that down, Rich. You can just turn it down and look, that's fine.
Okay. This is our landscape plan. It has been reviewed by county staff for compliance with their codes. We do show some interior upgrades around the gazebo. I think you folks have seen the Castle Field development. They want to upgrade and make it look attractive, so hopefully you'll have a chance to take a look at what we're proposing.
Sheet 37, last sheet in the
37.
set.
Okay. Okay. 19, okay. Okay.
Yes, ma'am, come up to the microphone again, please.
I just thought it was in regard to landscaping. Are we losing any of the trees that are on Hilltop right now, like on Mr. Hoxton's property? Is anything being taken out there? There's pines there as well.
Around the cornfield area, there's a couple of trees that will be taken out, yes. Perhaps this, we're going to put trees back, yes, that's correct.
It is Hilltop, we need all the trees we can get up there.
Anything else, sir?
Not at this time, sir.
Fine job as usual. Comment? Any more comment, question, concern?
Now, just for the record, I do not have all the comments back yet. I had a letter stating that you had spoken to stormwater management things, but I haven't seen anything in writing from any of those people. So I wanted to go ahead and bring them in so that you could go ahead and do this review, so they could get water and sewer comments and update again and come back a little more ready for April.
Michelle, if I may add, you're going to get a new set of comment or approval letter because of the numbers.
Okay, thank you.
I know previously one of our comments was to confirm various ownerships and make sure that we show enough surrounding property, for example, down to Southwestern on some of the mapping. We're a little shy going down that way since we're right up against those properties. We would like to see those. For the board. Based on the sightings, the landscaping, similar product to what they've currently constructed, I have no problem with recommending a modified building restriction line to 40 feet. That will allow them to project 10 feet in without any further modifications. At this point in time, I'd have to ask, since we're still outstanding comments, you're looking just for a recommendation and not an actual approval, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
We're not doing
Does anyone on the board have concerns with that modification?
No, I think 40 feet consistency all around. And the way we've discussed the decking issue. I feel comfortable with the setbacks at a modified 40 all around.
Okay. As people know, I'm not a big fan of approving projects that will lead to further zoning modifications in the future. So it's kind of pay very close attention to those setbacks as final sightings come through. Don't be too overly generous with the decks, but I don't think that's going to be a problem in this project. So, as you heard, there's numerous comments for utilities to still be worked out. We look forward to seeing those revisions to come back in the future. Also, please pay close attention to the fencing railing that's in there. And you may want to have your LA look at landscape material that would help deter people from the Hilltop residents from getting too close to that fence. I'm thinking something with a little thorn to it, maybe.
Yeah, but no barberry,
No barberry, though.
please, and no burning bush.
Right.
I don't want to see either one of those two.
It's something to just kind of discourage them from going through
Yeah.
there.
Just get some good old-fashioned French hedgerow.
Your kids would probably like the electric fence. They'd be throwing stuff up against it, and watch it spark.
You must know my son.
I do appreciate the effort you put forth so far in looking at providing sewer for possible outages of your neighbors. That's one of my big issues here, is to make sure that we're always looking out for the parts of the town that currently are on septic, so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Excellent. Wrap up. Comments, concerns from the board?
I hate being quiet.
You did very good.
Sometimes.
You did very good tonight.
You were pondering in thought.
Oh, I was pondering.
So, I got one question. All right, I'm a little confused. When you said looking for any recommendations or approvals, I don't want an approval on the plan, but are you recommending that this 40-foot, you are
Yes,
recommending the
okay,
setback change?
I will make a motion on this case
Okay.
to formally approve the setback request at 40 feet from all property lines.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion on the floor to accept the 40-foot building line modification. Did I say that correctly? Wow. Okay. It has been seconded. Just for the record, we know Henry will not be voting in this, so the 5 remaining members will all need to vote. All those, any questions or comment on the motion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, you have it.
Okay. Now you can go on.
I make motion to adjourn.
I second the
accept that
motion.
motion.
I want to speak.
Good evening, meeting adjourned.